My wife was keeping a pet behind my back. She even hired him as her assistant at Shin Media Group. When I uncovered the truth, I wasn't so much angry as I was coldly amused. I turned my attention to a new intern at my own company and decided to give her some focused mentorship. Later, my wife, Claire, knelt before me, admitting she was wrong. I just laughed. Your family's entire business exists because of my family's money. Don't you think it's a little late for apologies? Beside me, Isabel Vance methodically pressed the heel of her stiletto onto Claire's outstretched hand, grinding it into the floor. Sorry, Isabel said, her voice smooth as glass. Mr. Rhodes prefers the feel of his car's Starlight headliner under his feet these days. You're far too dirty for that. After that, I took back everything I'd ever given the Shun family. Then I sent them on a permanent African safari, a one-way trip to watch the Great Migration for the rest of their lives. My executive assistant has always been brutally efficient. From the moment I noticed something was off to the moment the truth landed on my desk, less than a week had passed. Staring at the thick dossier, a cold smirk played on my lips. The college kid was handsome, I'll give him that. I could almost understand why Claire, with her impossibly high standards, had been tempted. I closed the file and picked up the resumes of our newly accepted interns, flipping through them one by one. I tapped a photo, find out if she has a boyfriend. I told my assistant. If she doesn't, I'm interested in providing some one-on-one mentorship. Soon, the stunningly beautiful girl was brought to my office. Isabel Vance. A cool, elegant beauty, top of her class at Wharton. On looks alone, she was an absolute goddess. No exaggeration. If you drop her in Hollywood, she'd have a legion of online followers and simps overnight. Her financial situation was obviously tight. Though she was impeccably dressed, you could see the faint signs of a limited budget in the details. I knew her story. She was a classic case of small-town girl with big-city ambition. Brilliant, hungry, but lacking the capital and connections to make the leap. She had fought her way through an Ivy League education on scholarships, graduating summa cum laude and landing the top intern spot at the Road Corporation. She was the poster child for pulling yourself up by your bootstraps. Without a major break, she was on track to comfortably join the upper middle class on her own merit. Not a bad life, but she was leagues above the boy toy my wife was keeping. Both had stunning exteriors, but they housed entirely different souls. One was a brilliant, ambitious go-getter. The other was a useless parasite with an insatiable appetite. And a man can never tolerate betrayal. If Claire wanted to play games, I'd play along. As for getting my own hands dirty, please. The insignificant Shin Media Group wasn't worth the effort. Claire was normally a calm, disciplined woman, an expert at masking her true feelings. I'd never seen her lose her composure. For years, she had been the lead actress in our little play, portraying the perfect, loving couple. If not for a chance discovery, I might have been fooled indefinitely. I had gone to the Shun Media Group headquarters to take her to lunch and found myself waiting near her office. That's when I noticed it. On the desk of a male assistant with a room key for a 5-star hotel. Judging by the card's worn edges, it had been in use for some time, at least 6 months. That made me pause. The reason was simple. The assistant was dressed in expensive designer clothes, but they hung on him like he was a coat rack. He looked like a kid playing dress-up. There weren't many people at Shin Media who could afford to keep a suite at a 5-star hotel year-round. The person closest to him, of course, was my wife. Lunch that day was pleasant enough, but my smile felt like a cheap imitation. After 5 years of marriage, she still treated me with the same attentive care as when we were newlyweds. I knew most of it was an act, but in our world, how much real emotion is there anyway? All I ever asked for was loyalty. The wife of Landon Rhodes could not be a traitor. My assistant finally placed the complete investigation on my desk. Claire had been very discreet. The kid's name was Dylan Connor, a graduate of some third-rate online college. Claire had given him money to buy a condo and a car, but was never seen with him in public. Even at the office, their interactions were strictly professional. She would sometimes even reprimand him harshly. Their trysts took place during their lunch breaks. Every day, they would slip out to a nearby hotel, the one the key card belonged to, and return to the office separately an hour later. This had been going on for nearly a year without anyone noticing. My wife, it turned out, had a talent for counter-surveillance. Knowing all this put me in a foul mood. She wanted the support of the Rhodes Corporation, but also craved the attention of a young stud. You can't have it both ways. I thought about confronting her, but then I reconsidered. After all these years, the Shun family, backed by Rhodes Corp., had grown substantially. Our businesses were intertwined. A sudden move would cause losses for my own company. My assistant watched me, his brow furrowed. Mr. Rhodes about Mrs. Rhodes and this situation. He was a family loyalist who had been with me for nearly a decade. He was reliable and utterly ruthless. Though his eyes were calm, I saw a flicker of cold fury in them. He was ready to act. I waved his concern away. It's not necessary. They aren't worth your time. I was telling the truth. Shun Media was a publicly traded company, but compared to the Rhodes Corporation, it was a gnat. I couldn't be bothered to sweat a tool. If she wanted a vibrator, what would happen if I threw this one away? She'd just find another. Force her to admit she cheated? Pointless. She was already tainted. Why bother trying to clean her up? Her tears of regret were worthless. It would make me look like some kind of hopeless romantic. I knew that if I so much as hinted at the evidence, hell, I didn't even need evidence. She would be on her knees, begging for forgiveness. The Rhodes family was an unshakable empire, and I was its sole heir. The line of women who wanted to be in my bed was endless. To put it bluntly, even if I cheated openly, the Shun family would have no choice but to smile and accept it. Because every year, I personally signed off on contracts that accounted for more than half of their company's profits. No matter how much she hated it, she would have to endure it. Just like in the past, whenever I was displeased, regardless of who was at fault, she was always the one to apologize. It always came with expensive gifts and romantic gestures to placate me. Those gifts were always carefully chosen, valuable, tasteful, and perfectly suited to my aesthetic. Usually, I never stayed angry for long. I'd accept the gift and, in return, send over another lucrative contract as compensation. In our social circle, Claire and I were known as the perfect power couple. I never denied it. I suppose, in a way, I believed it too. Our world is merciless. I was just grateful to be the one holding all the cards. Now, the thought of Claire, so thoroughly used, just disgusted me. It felt like standing in a pile of garbage. My assistant, seeing my silence, stood by quietly, waiting for my command. 5 years ago, while Rhodes Corporation was expanding into overseas markets, a domestic rival saw an opening and attacked our vulnerable supply chain. It was a critical moment. If we couldn't close the funding gap in time, the entire corporation could have capsized. The crisis scared off many of our partners. No one wanted to risk angering a rival conglomerate by betting on our uncertain future. But Claire's father, the head of the Shun family, decided to throw us a lifeline. It wasn't much, just a few key introductions, but it bought Rhodes Corp the time it needed to recover. In return, the Rhodes Corporation became the behemoth it is today, and the Shun family's business thrived in our shadow. Standing in my penthouse, Isabel Vance didn't have the same feverish, gold-digging look I saw in most women's eyes. She glanced at me once, then lowered her head, a thoughtful glimmer in her eyes. When my assistant summoned her, he had been clear. The terms were generous. A monthly stipend of $50,000, with other expenses covered separately. Everything was itemized. She was smart enough to know this money wouldn't come easy. 50 grand a month was too much for a simple-kept woman. When she asked my assistant for details, he had simply smiled. "That's for Mr. Rhodes to discuss with you." I said nothing. Even in a transactional arrangement, appearances mattered. Besides, I was certain she wouldn't refuse. She didn't have the luxury of refusal, not unless she was prepared to pack her bags and leave New York for good. She had the looks, the ambition, the talent, and the drive, but she lacked the platform. For a woman who refused to be ordinary, the temptation of a shortcut to the top was too great. Honestly, the $50,000 stipend was the least valuable part of the deal. Isabel had already chosen her path. It was just a question of who would open the door for her. She had no room to refuse. When I invited her for a private mentorship session, she didn't decline. She simply waited for me to name my price. After my assistant left, leaving us alone in the massive living room, Isabel looked up, her eyes blazing with raw ambition. "Mr. Rhodes, besides my body, what else will you require of me?" I smiled, leaning back against the sofa and just watching her. She was perceptive. She knew I was waiting for her to make the first move. After a moment's hesitation, she moved to sit beside me. Her fingers were long and elegant, like ivory. I studied her. The cold beauty was now tinged with a shy vulnerability. Perfect. Utterly perfect. She was younger and more beautiful than Claire. And who doesn't prefer younger and more beautiful? The reach of the Rhodes family is vast. Claire thought her affair was a well-kept secret, but if I wanted to know something, secrets ceased to exist. I had simply trusted her too much before, or rather, I was too confident in myself. I once thought Claire was obedient enough, and for a while that was fine, but I was wrong. Suddenly, all I felt for her was revulsion. A woman that dirty was not fit to be the lady of the Rhodes household. The first lady of Rhodes Corp could be ambitious. She could be a trophy, but she had to be loyal, especially when the family's interests were at stake. Playing games behind my back. Was she feeling oppressed by me for so long that she needed to find someone to worship her? To feel like a princess again? It looked like she was having a great time. Fine. I'd see for myself just how much fun a younger woman could be. Exactly what you think, I said finally, my voice lazy, my eyes locked on hers. Loyalty. Become my canary, I continued. I will give you resources. How far you fly is up to you. But the foundation of it all is loyalty. Isabel seemed stunned, as if the opportunity had come sooner and bigger than she'd ever imagined. She lowered her head, but I could see the irrepressible light of ambition shining in her eyes. I chuckled and spelled it out for her. The Shun family has been getting too comfortable for too long. I need a knife, a sharp, obedient knife. The choice is yours. This was the offer Isabel had been waiting for her entire life. She was an ambitious woman with beauty and talent, but no power or platform. Being a kept woman was a viable option. At least I was only in my early 30s, a significant upgrade from the 60-year-old men who usually offered such arrangements. Isabel remained silent. Then, a blush crept up her cheeks. Despite being prepared to sacrifice everything for her ambition, a woman who had saved her virginity for a strategic advantage wasn't entirely shameless. I knew my words were blunt, crass, even, and difficult for her to swallow. But so what? She wouldn't refuse. The Rhodes Corporation had the means to ensure her loyalty indefinitely. She lifted her head, her gaze now sharp and clear, the initial distance gone. She rose from the sofa and slowly knelt by my side, a clear gesture of submission. Her reaction, I admit, surprised me. She adapted quickly. I like that. No pretense. Mr. Rhodes, she said, her voice steady. I am entirely at your disposal. Honestly, it took me a moment to fully grasp her meaning. This woman's ambition was staggering. I almost laughed. She was worried her blade wasn't sharp enough and wanted to start honing it immediately. I smiled, genuinely pleased. This girl was interesting. A good choice. She was falling into character so quickly. I'd seen the pictures. The look in Dylan Connor's eyes when he looked at Claire was pure adoration, a fawning, sycophantic worship. With him, Claire was the one holding all the power, and she reveled in it. But the way Isabel looked at me was like she was observing an unruly younger brother, even though she was 7 years my junior. Was she mocking me for not putting her in her place? I was offended. The duties of a CEO could wait. A man's pride was on the line. I threw her into the bedroom. 3 hours later, I dragged my exhausted body out of bed and lit a cigarette. Isabel was a wildcat. Even though she was inexperienced, she refused to back down, matching my energy blow for blow. In the end, I was the one who surrendered. Fighting through her own discomfort, she leaned over and lit my cigarette for me. Her eyes still held that soft gaze, but now it was mixed with a newfound adoration. Her clothes were unwearable, torn to shreds. I gently lifted her chin, a smirk on my face. Remember, be a good girl. Come when you're called. She remained silent, not making any demands or asking questions. She simply stood up and looked for anything salvageable to wear. Yes, Mr. Rhodes, I understand. She looked me straight in the eye. Her clothes were a lost cause, and I couldn't very well let her leave like that. She was my woman now, after all. I picked up the phone and called my assistant. Buy some clothes for Ms. Vance. That's right. She was my assistant now. My personal assistant. I admired her stunning figure as she slipped on the logo print sheer stockings and Saint Laurent heels he brought over. Perfect. She bit her lip, then finally spoke. Mr. Rhodes, these shoes aren't very comfortable, and they'll get dirty outside. I think I'd be better off in sneakers. I laughed softly, stroking her cheek. Comfort doesn't matter. They're beautiful, and that's what matters. As for getting dirty, I added, meeting her confused gaze, top-tier Saint Laurent heels like these are never meant to touch pavement. I gestured toward the garage. When you wear these, the only thing your feet will touch is a Starlight headliner. Her face flushed crimson. The Maybach that had picked her up had that exact feature. She knew precisely what I meant. Novi understood. This was the thrill Claire had been chasing. When Isabel first met me, she had clearly tried to look her best, but the signs of her financial strain were still visible. Her office blouse was cheap, her heels were from a discount store, and her stockings were coarse to the touch, bargain bin items. She put on the new clothes my assistant bought. They fit her perfectly. She had fully embraced her new role, no longer seeing herself as a mere employee, but as a sponge, absorbing every bit of management knowledge she could. I found it amusing and a little endearing. For the entire month, I didn't see Claire. I didn't even go home. I spent every day and night with Isabel. Mr. Rhodes, she'd say, I promise you, give me 1 year, and I will be the sharpest weapon in your arsenal. I will cut down anything in your path. I shook my head. A year is too long. I'll give you 2 months. You don't need to do everything yourself. You just need to learn how to put the most capable people in the right positions. They'll handle the details. To that end, I assigned a rotating team of my top executives to be her private tutors. The curriculum was tailor-made for one purpose: the dismantling of the Shin Media Group. Isabel accepted it all without question, showing her gratitude by exhausting me in the bedroom. After one particularly intense session, she looked at me, her body language hesitant despite her fatigue. Your birthday is coming up, she finally said. What would you like? I paused. She wanted to buy me a gift. It was unnecessary, of course. What could she possibly afford? The clothes I bought her cost more than her entire annual stipend. But looking into her expectant eyes, my heart softened. She was already a natural beauty. Now, dressed according to my taste, she was breathtaking. It was intoxicating. In the end, I couldn't bring myself to refuse her gesture. It's hot, I said, and I want you to put it on me yourself. Isabel nodded, and a genuine, radiant smile spread across her face. Her taste was excellent. The tie she chose was perfect. In return, the gifts I would have bought for Claire now went to Isabel. Over time, her gifts to me became more frequent. Some were expensive, others were simple trinkets. But without exception, each one was chosen with incredible care. It was only then that Claire finally came looking for me, her voice strained over the phone. I suppose she'd been having so much fun she'd lost track of time and only just remembered her husband hadn't been home in a month. Well, it was time to collect on that debt, starting with the interest. I hadn't made any special effort to hide my arrangement with Isabel. While keeping it quiet would have been easy, the fact that I hadn't been home in a month was an open secret for anyone who cared to look. I knew Claire was anxious. She could feel her position was threatened, but she didn't yet know who her rival was. When I saw her in my office, I let a flicker of mockery cross my face before schooling my features back into a mask of indifference, tinged with disgust. I was completely over her. She wasn't as beautiful as Isabel, not nearly as talented, and as for the Shun family backing her, we'd see if Isabel could replace them. Claire plastered on a placating smile. Landon, have you been well? I know you've been busy, so I didn't want to disturb you. I booked a table at our favorite restaurant tonight. I thought we could have a nice dinner. I didn't have time tonight. I already had plans with Isabel to revisit the romance of the Starlight headliner. Just as I was about to refuse, Claire changed the subject. Landon, I heard Rhodes Corp has a few new projects. We were expecting them to go to Shin Media, but they were awarded to a small, newly founded company instead. She forced a laugh. Could you redirect them back to us? I'll make sure to take care of that little company. Toss them a few small contracts to keep them happy. So that was the real reason for her visit. Too bad for her that the small, newly founded company was the one I had set up for Isabel. It was the blade I was sharpening for Shun Media's throat. Since the game was already in motion, there was no need to pretend anymore. I gave her a look dripping with amusement. The Rhodes Corporation's contract go wherever I want them to go. I think the Shun family has had more than enough. I laughed inwardly. It wasn't that I didn't want to act on her infidelity. I was simply waiting for my new weapon to be properly forged. This would be good practice for Isabel, a capable assistant for the future. Claire fell silent, a flicker of panic in her eyes. She clearly hadn't expected me to be so blunt. Landon, don't be like this. We can't let this affect the partnership between our companies. So a few good years had made some people forget their place. I looked her over with mock interest. What's this? Is Shin Media's appetite so big now that you're questioning my decisions? That's when real fear crept into her expression. She hesitated, then switched to her softest, most gentle tone. Landon, did that woman say something to you? Don't let her manipulate you. I'm your wife. The Shun family is your ally. She wrung her hands. You can play around all you want. I won't interfere. But you can't jeopardize our business partnership over it. I gave her a half smile. So now you remember how important the road's name is. Where was that thought when you were with your puppy? Just then, there was a soft knock on the door. Isabel entered with a file. She placed it on my desk and turned to leave, but I reached out and pulled her into my lap. Claire froze. Isabel, too, was momentarily flustered. This was the first time the two of them had met. Claire lowered her head, looking for all the world like the one who was the shameful secret. I ignored her. Isabel was quick on the uptake. She knew exactly why I was doing this. It was pure provocation. She purred, Landon, you promised you'd have dinner with me tonight. Don't you forget. She was a natural, laying it on thick right in front of Claire. Claire was stunned. When she saw the limited edition designer clothes and handbag on Isabel, she knew they were for me. Her face burned with humiliation, but all she did was stare at Isabel, her eyes filled with panic and insecurity. The air in the room was thick with tension. After a long, uncomfortable silence that was starting to annoy me, Claire finally looked up. She was the prized daughter of the Shun family, bred for strategic alliances. She wasn't a fool. In the month I'd been gone, she must have had Isabel investigated from top to bottom. But she had been overconfident, assuming I was just having a meaningless fling that wouldn't threaten her status. Now, seeing Isabel challenge her so brazenly to her face, that confidence evaporated. Landon, so this is your new assistant. She's very nice, Claire managed to say, her eyes red as she forced a pained smile. My assistant started to enter, sensing the charged atmosphere, but I waved him off. This was a small skirmish. Claire couldn't make a scene here. I kept Isabel settled on my lap, glancing dismissively at my wife. Claire didn't dare object. She stood there obediently and even forced a smile at Isabel. Ms. Vance, I'm so sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to talk to Landon about some contracts. Before she could finish, I cut her off. Claire, I already told you. The contracts are not going to Shemedia. What part of that do you not understand? Have you forgotten your place? Claire stood rigid, shocked that I would humiliate her so publicly. Cradling Isabel, I didn't even bother to look at my wife. Claire, I haven't even started to deal with you and that college kid of yours. You should be very careful not to piss me off. Panic flashed across her face. She thought she had covered her tracks so well. Landon, it's not what you think, she stammered. I never betrayed you. I just needed someone to talk to sometimes, that's all. I gave a non-committal, oh, you can go now. I'm not interested in your excuses. With a soft thud, she dropped her knees and crawled a few feet toward me, begging. Landon, you have to believe me. I would never betray you. I swear, I didn't do anything. I said nothing, just stared at her coldly. My good mood for the day was officially ruined. It seemed a few years of prosperity had made the Shun family forget how they used to grovel. Or perhaps they thought that by marrying me, Claire had elevated them to the same level as the Rhodes family. My patience was wearing thin. Claire, who the hell do you think you are? She froze, speechless. She had never been subjected to such a raw insult from me. I pressed on, tearing down her lies without a shred of mercy. Have you forgotten what you are? The Shun family is alive today because of the Rhodes Corporation. Why in the world should I trust you after the stunt you pulled? This was so tedious. I had been looking forward to my evening with Isabel, and now this. I used to be able to maintain a level of detached courtesy with her, for the sake of her being my wife and her dutiful performance. But now that I had decided to cut the Shun family loose, there was no need for pretense. I turned my attention from Claire and patted Isabel's leg. Let's go, I said softly. We're leaving early today. Let's go shopping. As I stood up, Claire lunged forward and grabbed Isabel's leg. Ms. Vance, I swear I won't get in your way with Landon. Please help me talk to him. I really didn't betray him. Before she could finish, Isabel cut her off. Mrs. Rhodes, I have no authority to make decisions for Mr. Rhodes. But in my opinion, the most important thing to him is loyalty. Claire went still. She understood Isabel's meaning. She looked at me, her eyes pleading, silently begging me to reverse my decision. Impossible. Even if she hadn't cheated, my contracts are mine to give. It seemed Claire still hadn't learned her place. Or maybe I'd just been too good to her for too long. Once in the car, I turned to Isabel with a cold smile. There's no more time for studying. It's time for a practical exam. I paused. Shin Media has a major project underway, and their capital is tied up. This is your chance. Go teach them a lesson. Isabel nodded obediently, simply saying, understood, but the fire in her eyes told me her mind was already racing. This was a period of weakness for Shun Media, more precarious even than Rhodes Corp's situation 5 years ago. Still, it wouldn't be enough to crush them completely. A wounded animal is still dangerous. I suspected Claire's father was still in the dark about her affair. After this financial blow, he would find out, and he would give me a satisfactory response. I never meddle in family affairs. The daughter belonged to the Shun family. It was their job to discipline her. Considering they had helped us once, if they were smart about this, I might consider letting them survive. Isabel's eyes sparkled. Of course, Mr. Rhodes. But first, weren't you going to show me the romance of the Starlight headliner? The little vixen. But she was right. I didn't want to experience that. Soon, the car's excellent soundproofing proved its worth. I had set Isabel up in a private villa on the north side of the city. It was quiet, and Claire didn't have a key. Isabel had accepted the arrangement without protest. The moment we walked through the door, I pulled her into my arms with a wicked grin. So, the Starlight headliner and the St. Lawrence, a perfect match, wouldn't you say? You were so excited you nearly kicked out the sunroof. A rare blush crept onto Isabel's face. You're terrible. I suppose the repair costs will have to come out of my living allowance. I rolled my eyes. I wasn't about to nickel and dime her over a sunroof. The sounds she made were more than enough to cover the cost. I smiled as I watched her disappear into the bathroom. She emerged quickly, not wanting to keep me waiting, carrying a platter of fresh fruit. Maybe it was because she had prepared it, but it tasted better than usual. With one piece of business taken care of, it was time for another. Isabel, come here. She shook out her freshly dried hair and walked gracefully over to me. Not tired yet, Mr. Rhodes? I was speechless. What was on this woman's mind? I grabbed a tangerine, peeled it, and playfully stuffed a segment in her mouth to silence her. She didn't seem to mind, just gave me a smoldering look, a faint blush on her cheeks, and a smile in her eyes. Thank you, Mr. Rhodes. Such a little siren. Every glance, every smile was an invitation. But right now, my lower back was aching. I had no energy left. Mr. Rhodes, she began, her tone now serious. For this attack on Shin Media, can I take the lead on strategy? She saw my curious glance and explained, a little sheepishly, don't worry, I'll have you approve the final plan before I make any moves. I just have a few ideas I'd like to try. I pinched her cheek, chuckling. It seems my little canary's ambition is growing. Isabel snuggled into my arms. It's not that. It's just, I want to be able to stand by your side one day as an equal. Her ambition was definitely growing, but that was a good thing. I wasn't looking for a docile trophy, was I? I chose Isabel for a reason, and it wasn't just her looks. Beautiful women are a dime a dozen. I was drawn to her flawless academic record and the fierce drive it represented. I nodded. All right. After all, my best investment team at Rhodes Corp would be overseeing her. There was little risk of disaster. And besides, the girl needed room to grow. Isabel kissed me passionately. Thank you, Mr. Rhodes. I don't mind an ambitious woman. In fact, I reward it. As long as Claire had been obedient, I had always funneled business to her family. Now, why wouldn't I give it to someone far more loyal? Make the plan detailed, I told her. My parents will be back in the country soon. If you do this well, you can come home with me to meet them. She nodded, her eyes shining with excitement. I'll do whatever you say, Mr. Rhodes. I promise you'll be satisfied. I just smiled. After dinner, I called my assistant and had him assemble our top M&A team, along with a liquid fund of over $30 million. It's all up to you now, I told Isabel. My expectations aren't high. Just hit a 9-figure profit, and you'll have passed. Isabel was stunned. She hadn't expected me to move so decisively. Landon, she whispered. I couldn't remember when she had stopped calling me Mr. Rhodes, but now it was always Landon, or in moments of passion, Landon. Her voice was soft, but incredibly firm. Landon, I won't let you down. I will be the most loyal, sharpest blade in your hand. Good. She was still the same smart girl. She knew that in my world, loyalty was infinitely more valuable than talent. I smiled faintly. A clever woman is always worth spoiling. She knelt softly beside me, her gaze adoring. It was a gesture she made every time she earned my praise. So unlike Claire, who only ever offered a hollow, obedient smile. Landon, you're so good to me, she murmured. I don't think I could ever leave you. I stroked her hair. I knew the words were half truth, half strategy, but it pleased me nonetheless. Who said anything about letting you go? You're never leaving. Isabel Vance knew too many of Rhodes Corporation's secrets. How could I ever let her go? Remember, I said, my voice low. You mine. It was 2 weeks later when the head of the Shun family came to my office, begging. In that time, Isabel's performance could only be described as phenomenal. This girl was born for this. Her plan had been conceived on the fly, with little preparation, but the results were flawless. A profit of over $20 million. To reward her, I decided to sign the deed of the villa over to her. I knew she would love it. I don't care if she loves me for my money or my status. The Rhodes family has more money than we could spend in generations. What I won't tolerate is someone lying next to me at night, plotting against me, betraying me. She was different. The thought of Isabel's reaction brought a rare smile to my face. I'd hardly smiled at all since discovering Claire's affair. But with Isabel, it seemed her every move brought me joy. In my office, Claire's father stood before me, trembling. Landon, I've heard about the situation. Rest assured, I've taken care of that boy, Dylan Connor. He's been sent to Southeast Asia. I guarantee he will never appear before you again. By now, he's probably been parted out. As for Claire, I have punished her severely. If you're still not satisfied, you can do with her as you wish. We've also prepared a substantial gift for Ms. Vance. We promise no one will disturb your arrangement. So if you would please, don't let this affect the business between our families. I nodded. If the Shin family continued to be this sensible, I wouldn't have to annihilate them. These old foxes of the business world can't help you much, but they have 1,000 ways to cause you trouble. Fine, I said. Let this be a lesson to her. If it happens again, don't expect any mercy. I waved him away, and my soon-to-be ex-father-in-law scurried out. Isabel had done well. The executives at Rhodes Corp were deeply impressed by her abilities. The Shun family had suffered devastating losses. They were practically crippled. And yet, they had to come here, smiling, and present her with an expensive gift. I glanced at it. A ruby necklace. Good quality, worth well over $1 million. It would look good on Isabel. But Isabel wasn't back yet, and there was a more important matter to address. I looked at my assistant. What's your assessment of Isabel Vance? He knew what I meant. Very capable, very ambitious. I nodded, but that wasn't the answer I was looking for. Can she be trusted? Lately, my assistant's main job had been to investigate her. The position of Mrs. Rhodes was not a trivial one. I would not let the situation with Claire repeat itself. Ms. Vance is extremely talented, he said carefully. The small company she's running is thriving. But the First Lady of Rhodes should be dependent on the Rhodes family. Her future path, sir, is yours to decide. His meaning was clear. Isabel was brilliant, but she wasn't yet under my complete control. I thought for a moment, then let it go. We'd cross that bridge when we came to it. If Isabel wanted to marry into the Rhodes family, she would have to be the one to take the next step. Understood, I said. Drop it for now. No more active surveillance on her. My assistant looked surprised, but said nothing, his expression as placid as ever. A few minutes later, I heard the front door open. A familiar, beautiful figure walked in. Landon, I'm home. I nodded. She was carrying a cake box. She wanted to celebrate with me. Congratulations, Isabel. Take a look at your gift. I hope you like it. She paused, taking the folder with the deed inside. Landon, I can't accept this. I've already earned so much from this. I chuckled. She said she couldn't accept it, but her eyes were shining. It was the joy of being recognized, of taking another step closer to marrying into the family. A single villa could never satisfy her ambition. The warm sunlight framed her face, making her look breathtakingly beautiful. I knew she was ambitious, though she never voiced it. I hadn't asked before because she hadn't yet earned a right to be asked. I wouldn't ask now because her ambition was not yet properly leashed. Time would tell. Mr. Rhodes, your parents will be returning from Europe soon. Shall I arrange the annual gala? My assistant asked in my office. My parents, the previous generation to lead the family, held a grand reception every year upon their return. Their presence alone was one of the Rhodes' greatest assets, and the annual event always generated a flood of new deals. The Shin family had always been particularly sycophantic at these events. I imagine this year will be no different. Claire's actions had been a grievous error. The only question was who my date would be. Claire was the obvious, socially acceptable choice, but I had no desire to share a stage with her. It would signal that all was forgiven between our families. Given how sensible her father had been, I should have considered giving him that courtesy. But I was done with Claire. I refused to inconvenience myself that way. Bringing Isabel, however, was also problematic. I wasn't divorced yet. A scandal like that would be messy. But I quickly made up my mind. This was the perfect opportunity for a clean break. Yes, I said, my date will be Isabel Vance. The rest can be arranged according to the usual standards. My assistant hesitated. Sir, are you sure you don't want to reconsider? Keeping a few mistresses was one thing, but having one as my official date to the family's most important social event was a powerful signal. It would mean the Rhodes family was publicly abandoning the Shuns, and that Isabel was no longer just a canary in a gilded cage. Regardless of whether she eventually married me, she would forever be branded as my woman. I waved them out. As I was considering how to break the news to my parents, there was a knock on the door. It was Isabel. Seeing me look up, her eyes danced with a smile. Landon. She was dressed in a sharp business suit, her long legs clad in black stockings. She looked delicious. She stood beside my desk, her voice bright. Landon, I booked the revolving restaurant for tonight. The one you said you liked. I nodded, ruffling her hair. Good. Seeing my approval, she beamed. Before she could say another word, I pulled her into my arms and kissed her. She melted against me, responding with equal passion. After a long moment, we broke apart. Isabel, I said, my parents are coming back soon. The corporation is hosting a welcome gala. I want you to be my date. She went silent, but I could feel her heart hammering against my chest. Her eyes were wide with excitement. Landon, will your parents approve? She asked, her voice trembling slightly. This will put the Rhodes family in a very awkward position. Even in her excitement, she had immediately grasped the central issue. I was pleased. My intensive tutoring had paid off. She was already thinking like a member of the upper crust. It's fine, I said. The Shuns can be forgiven, and our business dealings can continue. But I am done with Claire. Besides, you're a company owner in your own right now. You have a respectable net worth. You need to get used to these kinds of events. Otherwise, you'll be embarrassing me. Isabel was doing very well. She was an excellent canary, a competent businesswoman. As for being a candidate for the next Mrs. Rhodes, that remained to be seen. First, she needed to be accepted by our circle. It took her a while to respond. She kept her head down, hiding her expression. When she finally spoke, her voice was tight with suppressed emotion. I'll do whatever you say, Landon. I promise I won't embarrass you. That was the answer I wanted. I leaned in and kissed her again. Remember, you belong only to me. The action made her flinch slightly. I was always possessive, but never so. Absolute. But at this point, her feelings on the matter were irrelevant. A flicker of hurt crossed her eyes. Landon, you know I'm loyal to you. Everything I have is yours. Just as I was enjoying Isabel's company, my phone rang. It was Claire. Her voice was sycophantic, trying hard to sound magnanimous. Landon, I know I was wrong. I'm begging you, please, just see me. She had been trying to get a meeting with me for days, but my assistant had blocked her every time. It seemed her father was putting immense pressure on her. After the hit their company took, I wasn't surprised. I didn't refuse. It was time to resolve this matter once and for all. Whether that resolution involved resolving people, well, that depended on the Shun family's attitude. Fine. 3 o'clock. The coffee shop downstairs from the Rhodes building. At the cafe, Claire looked like she had lost a lot of weight. The exhaustion on her face was impossible to hide. I glanced at her once and then looked away. She wasn't as pretty as Isabel. Claire, fully aware that her position was gone, had shed all her former arrogance. She was back to being the subservient woman she had been at the beginning, but now with a new layer of desperation. Landon, it was my mistake. I've changed, I swear. Please, can you forgive me? I shrugged nonchalantly. Why should I? Just because you say you're sorry, I'm obligated to forgive you. The world doesn't work that way. If every mistake could be erased with an apology, we'd be living in a utopia. Claire's face stiffened. Then, gritting her teeth, she knelt on the floor of the cafe. I have always been the center of my world. The colossal Rhodes family has only 2 sons with a claim to inheritance. But my brother is a full 10 years younger than me. The corporation can't wait that long. That makes me the sole heir. The succession battles common in other powerful families never happened in mine. The number of families who wanted to form an alliance with me through marriage was endless. I chose Claire for 2 reasons. First, her family had helped mine, and second, her family was weak. Weak enough that they could never interfere with the Rhodes Corporation. I felt safe, but it seems people like dogs should not be overfed. At first, she was cautious and deferential, but the power and wealth I gave her made her arrogant. She began to think that what belonged to the Rhodes family was hers by right, forgetting that I could take it all away at any moment. I had been tolerant of her little indulgences, turning a blind eye to many things. Problems that can be solved with money are not problems, but I will never, ever tolerate betrayal. It wasn't just about being cheated on. What would come next? Would she try to get the Rhodes Corporation renamed? She was barren land, but when you're rich and powerful enough, you can have as much of it as you want. And now she wants to repent. It's too late. Everything the Shun family has, I gave them. And what I can give, I can certainly take away. Landon, I really know I was wrong. My father punished me. Look. She unbuttoned her jacket. I had wondered why she was wearing a jacket when it wasn't cold. Now I understood. Her skin was covered in a lattice of angry red welts. They looked like they were from a belt. I wondered if her father had dipped it in salt water first. Landon, see, my father beat me for what I did. I've cleaned myself up. I'm clean. I went to the clinic to get tested. Please, don't be so cruel. She pulled a medical report out of her purse. Pathetic. Did she really think I was that shallow? The body can be cleaned. The soul? Seeing my lack of reaction, she trembled as she pulled a leather whip from her bag. Landon, if you're still angry, you can hit me. I said nothing, taking a sip of my coffee as if the woman kneeling before me was a complete stranger. And she was, who wants to associate with garbage? Claire crawled forward and clutched my leg, pleading. Landon, we've been together for so many years. It was a moment of weakness. Can you please forgive me? And Isabel, I have no problem with you keeping her, she rushed on. If you don't want to touch me, we can do IVF. Just give me a child. I'll stay home and be a good mother. Okay. I scoffed, not even bothering to look up. Let go. And don't give me that moment of weakness bullshit. I checked the hotel records. You booked that room for a year. You call that a moment? Realizing what I was saying, Claire's face went white. But she quickly composed herself, putting on a pitiful expression, though the hatred in her eyes was unmistakable. Landon, for the sake of my family helping yours, please forgive me. You promised my father you wouldn't cut ties with Shemedia. I swear, I will never interfere with you and Ms. Vance. At home, I'll do whatever she says, okay. Just then, Isabel walked in. She stopped, momentarily confused by the scene before walking to my side. Today, she was wearing a stunning sky blue Chong Sam, heels, and stockings. She instantly captured all of my attention. Every little thing she did now seemed to captivate me. Landon, you wanted to see me? Her question confused me. I hadn't called her. Then I understood. This was Claire's doing. Claire didn't get up. She looked at Isabel with a fawning smile. I'm sorry, Ms. Vance. I was the one who asked you to come. I have no ill intentions. I just wanted to state my position. I will never interfere with you and Landon. Please, can you put in a good word for me? Shemedia can't survive without the Rhodes Corporation's help. Isabel frowned, but said nothing. She was smart enough to know which battles to fight. Seeing Isabel's silence, Claire grew desperate. She grabbed Isabel's leg, sobbing hysterically. I watched Claire's pathetic, groveling display with a detached smile. I couldn't even be bothered to curse at her anymore. She was just too filthy. Finally, I spoke, my voice cold as ice. Isabel, your response. A woman as sharp as Isabel would never play dumb at a moment like this. She kicked Claire away, then planted her 10-centimeter heel firmly on Claire's hand, grinding it into the floor. Her voice was laced with contempt. Sorry, Mr. Rhodes prefers the feel of his car's Starlight headliner these days. You're far too dirty for that. I was very satisfied with her answer. Without another word, I stood up and walked out, Isabel on my arm. The day my parents returned, I brought Isabel with me to the airport. I had told them about her, and they were curious. As for Claire, their silence on the matter was a clear endorsement of my actions. It meant they were displeased. No one gets to tarnish the Rhodes family name. On the way home, I briefly explained the recent events and stated my intentions. Isabel will be my date to the gala. At a suitable time, I will be divorcing Claire. They nodded. Though they were no longer involved in the day-to-day operations, little escaped their notice. You handle it as you see fit, my father said. The corporation is in your hands now. We trust you to consider the bigger picture. But it was clear their real interest was in Isabel. In all these years, I had maintained a clean reputation. There wasn't a single woman in my executive office. Perhaps that was one of the reasons Claire felt so secure, so willing to take risks. This girl, Isabel, seems decent, my mother remarked. But whether she marries into this family is our decision to make, not just yours. We'll have to see. I nodded, confident that Isabel's intelligence would win them over. Still, I was curious. Don't you have any questions? My mother smiled. Any woman who catches your eye must be capable, and you can ensure her loyalty. We are concerned with her character. You've fallen for her, so it's our duty to vet her properly. If she's a schemer, it's better to get rid of her sooner rather than later. I rubbed my nose, slightly embarrassed. Was I that hard to manage? My father clapped my shoulder. Being the first lady of the Rhodes family is not an easy job, especially now that you control the entire empire. After dinner, they summoned Isabel to the study. I tried to follow, but they shooed me out. I don't know what they discussed, but by the end of it, my parents were already treating her like a daughter-in-law. My mother even arranged for a couture gown to be made for her for the gala. When I asked what they talked about, everyone just smiled mysteriously. It took me locking Isabel in the bedroom and interrogating her for an entire night before she finally gave in. I just gave your parents a gift, she whispered, breathless. As for what it was, you'll find out when we get engaged. This girl deserved a reward. As for whether she loved me, I think in the end, she did. Some people's minds just work differently. While we were busy preparing for the gala, Isabel was in an accident. Looking at her unconscious form in the hospital bed, my face was thunderous. I turned to my assistant, my voice dangerously low. Find out how this accident happened. He bowed and left, his own face a mask of cold fury. In our world, these kinds of tactics were common. Isabel was driven by a company chauffeur every day. A sudden car crash was highly suspicious, especially coming just as I was filing for divorce. 3 days later, I was sitting by Isabel's bedside, feeding her soup, when Claire was dragged in by my bodyguards and forced to her knees. Landon, it's all this bitch's fault, she shrieked. If it weren't for her, you wouldn't have left me. She must have been bad-mouthing me behind my back. Why did you save her? If she just died, we could go back to how things were. The woman was clearly unhinged. To actually make a move on Isabel. She had a death wish. I laughed a cold, empty sound and stretched lazily. Claire, I thought you had learned your lesson. If you had just quietly signed the divorce papers, I might have spared the Shun family. But since you're so determined to be stupid, I see no reason for Shun Media to continue to exist. Tears streamed down her face, her eyes wild. Landon, you can't do this to me. I've been married to you for years. I wronged you once, just once, and you're going to take everything from me. Yes, everything. She was a woman married off for an alliance, and because she couldn't grasp her place, she had brought ruin upon her family. A week ago, when the Shun family received the divorce papers, they had surely turned on her. Seeing her crazed expression, so different from her usual polished sweetness, I felt a flicker of pity. Claire, I was offering a simple divorce out of respect for your family's past help. You made your own mistakes, and you have to bear the consequences. Everything you're losing, you only gain by marrying me. It was all contingent on your loyalty. You weren't loyal, so of course you lose it. It's that simple. This woman was pathetic. Even now, she didn't understand the magnitude of her error. Claire seemed to finally understand. The reality of her doomed fate washed over her. She broke free from the guards and crawled to the bed. Ms. Vance, I was wrong. I really was wrong. Please forgive me. I don't want to go to prison. This time, Isabel didn't remain aloof. She kicked the woman to the ground. Claire, I used to think you were pitiful. Now, I just find you hateful. Since the Shun family raised a monster like you, I won't be holding back any longer. Fearing the altercation would upset Isabel further, I waved my hand. The bodyguards dragged Claire out. As for her fear of prison, she didn't need to worry. I wouldn't let her atone for her sins so easily. After comforting Isabel, I went to the office. Her injuries weren't severe. She was mostly suffering from shock. On the way, I closed my eyes, thinking, did the Shin family know about this? My assistant was silent for a moment. There's no direct proof, but it's likely they did. The money used to bribe the driver didn't come from Claire's personal account. It was wired from a Shun Media corporate account. I nodded. That was all the justification I needed. When Isabel is discharged, let her practice her skills again. The news of our impending divorce was already circulating, though no one knew the reason. The Shun family, naturally, was desperate. My former father-in-law had even indirectly asked if I would be interested in choosing another wife from his family. The old man wasn't much of a businessman, but he had certainly been productive, with 2 sons and 2 daughters. He was now eagerly trying to sell me the other daughter. He was a great admirer of ancient history and was keen for me to reenact the tale of the emperor who married 2 sisters. When I refused, he gave Claire his tacit permission to make her move. His calculation was simple. If she succeeded in getting rid of Isabel, the Shun family would be back in my good graces. If she failed, all the blame would fall on her. Very well, let the Shun family be the stepping stone for my little upstart. The future First Lady of Rhodes needed to have a certain net worth. After all, this year's welcome gala was the most extravagant one we had ever hosted. Rhodes Corp put dozens of major new partnership projects on the table, drawing the attention of the entire upper echelon of the business world. It was a massive show of force, designed to quell any negative press for my divorce. When I arrived with Isabel on my arm, the Shun family, who were also in attendance, looked like they had seen a ghost. I frowned. I didn't remember sending them an invitation. I gently tucked a stray strand of hair behind Isabel's ear and squeezed her hand. Don't be nervous. We own this room. Tonight is our stage. Isabel smiled sweetly. She had transformed from an ambitious girl into a formidable woman. She leaned in and kissed my cheek. Of course, Landon. I'll belong to you for the rest of my life. The evening went smoothly. After a few initial jitters, Isabel handled herself with grace and confidence. She had mastered the rules of high society. She was a natural. As for my partnership with the Shun family, I shot a contemptuous look at my ex-father-in-law. I had received the final divorce decree yesterday. I made a simple announcement. As of today, the Rhodes Corporation is severing all business ties with the Shun Media Group. My ex-father-in-law couldn't accept it. He pushed past the security and stood before me. His eyes were filled with rage, but his posture was still deferential. Mr. Rhodes, even if you and Claire are divorced, the Shun family has done nothing to wrong you. You promised me you wouldn't cut off our business. I gave him a scornful look and turned to leave with Isabel. Did the Shun family really not know what they had done? Seeing me leave, Claire's father dropped to his knees. Mr. Rhodes, our family has already paid the price. Please don't do this. I looked back at him, my eyes cold. Really? Do I need to spell out your little scheme for everyone? You know exactly what happened with Isabel's car accident. Don't think you covered your tracks. The money came from your company's accounts. Don't tell me Claire suddenly developed a talent for embezzlement. I turned to my assistant. Get him out of here. My ex-father-in-law looked desperately toward my father, pleading for intervention. My father shook his head and took a slow sip of his wine. Landon is the head of the Rhodes family now. His word is final. That sentence sealed their fate. The Shin family was not just incompetent. They were treacherous. If not dealt with decisively, they would one day turn around and bite the hand that fed them. Son, this Isabel is quite something. Are you sure you want to marry her? my father asked, a wry smile on his face as we sat in his study. I nodded. Yes, father. At first, she was just a canary, but she's proven to be a perfect fit for Rhodes. I knew my father had been impressed with her, but his question made me uneasy. He closed his eyes, thinking for a long moment. All right, but the wife of a Rhodes cannot be a mere trophy. Let her handle the Shun family situation, and I want no loose ends. I nodded. I didn't need to ask what no loose ends meant. Some things are better left unsaid. The Shun family's time was over. Isabel truly had a gift for it. In just 1 year, she completely dismantled and absorbed the Shun Media Group. But she was smart. She immediately transferred the majority of the Shun family's assets directly to the Rhodes Corporation. Just like that, Isabel became a woman of considerable wealth. My parents were very pleased with her decisiveness. Over the past few years, our relationship had evolved beyond that of a benefactor and his pet project. The day I proposed, she was wearing a stunning white gown. As I slid the ring onto her finger, she whispered in my ear, I have a gift for you. I think you'll like it. She was right. The gift she had given my parents on their first meeting was the controlling shares of her own company. Her words to them were, Mr. Rhodes values loyalty above all else. I don't know how else to prove mine, except to give him everything I have. As for the Shun family, after their bankruptcy, they had planned to flee the country and live out their days in luxury. They knew that with the Rhodes' influence in the country, they would never be safe. Isabel, in an act of what she called charity, arranged for them to be sent to the deepest parts of Africa to watch the great animal migration. In the video she showed me, the entire family was on their knees in the dirt, weeping and thanking her profusely. I suppose they were grateful. With the arrangements Isabel made, I'm sure their local hosts would take very good care of them.